What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's episode of Investor Play. Today we're going to go over an appraisal, which if you're a BRRRR investor like I am, this is what it's all about. This is where you make your money. So these are the things you really want to make sure that you're honed in on to actually get the best return on your investment when it comes to actually getting capital back out of it. Because if the whole process, the whole point of doing a BRRRR is to get your capital back out, and then if you're really good, like what I do, I get money on top of that tax-free. So that's the win-win. That's how you BRRRR. That's how you scale. That's how you grow without having tons of money sitting in the bank. Yeah, cool. If you have millions sitting in the bank and you can put 20% down all the time, yeah, rental properties are pretty easy. But if you're someone like me that started from basically nothing, this is the best way on how you grow your properties. So I'm going to go over and walk you through step by step of what an appraisal is. And also, if you watch the end of the videos, I'm going to go over my top 5 things of what I do to get the best value out of my appraisal. And also, I'm going to go over some things that are a little bit of a misconception. If you watch HTV and, oh, yeah, this raises the value, it doesn't actually raise the value of the property. And I'll show you why and how that is affected on an actual appraisal report. I'm also going to go over, you can see on the 2 appraisals I'm going to show you, they actually use the comps, the same comps for both properties because the properties are very near to each other. And you can see that they value them differently in the actual appraisal. So I'm going to break down exactly why they do that and why 2 appraisers can go out even to the same property and have 2 completely different values. So try to keep it short and sweet as always. So stay tuned. I'm going to share my screen with you and we're going to walk through some appraisals. All right, everybody. So this is one way that they're going to show up on how appraisal looks. Sometimes they have like a cover sheet of a different, thing, but this is kind of how, basically, what a normal appraisal is going to come up looking at. Obviously, you're going to have your address, who the borrower is. You're going to have your lender, if it's a purchase or a refinance. It's going to have all the pertinent data of what it is. Also, the appraiser themselves, stuff like that. So if there's any time a property was listed, it's actually going to show on here what it was listed for or what it sold for and yada, 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 and even the MLS number. So there's a couple things that when you buy something off the MLS, you got to understand that the appraiser is going to be able to see that last sale. They're also going to pull up the pictures of that last sale. So if you're in the business of BRRRR, like I am, the last thing you want to do is buy something for under market value and then not change it a ton. So you have to be very careful when you buy something on the market because you got to understand that they're going to have that old property to go out, and that's whatever that property sold for, that in that condition, that's what it's going to say it's worth. So that's why a lot of investors get hung up, is because they buy something and they just put lipstick on it. And then by they're saying lipstick, it just means like changing the paint, flooring, stuff like that, little things like that. But they don't actually change anything. They don't add any square footage. They don't change the roof out. They don't put energy efficient windows. They don't add any bathrooms or bedrooms in it. So it's very hard for them to give you a high value if they don't actually see change. So, and I'll go over that kind of at the end of the video about how really maximizing your value of it, and also just you have to change it if you bought off the MLS. If not, they're going to pull that old MLS, and that's not caught me a ton, but it's been close. The closest thing I've ever had to actually leaving money in a deal was a property bought off of the MLS, and I didn't change a ton. And that's when I saw that, okay, even though, because just because you got it for a good deal because that person needed to sell it or whatever it is, well, as an appraiser, they're going to look at it and say, well, you bought it 3 months ago and you really didn't change much. So they're not going to go find the comps like they're supposed to do, like of the nicer properties, just because you got it for a good deal. Now, if it's off market and there's no record of it, then you're good to go. You literally can buy it for one day, do nothing to it, and if it's worth it, go get it appraised. Say it's already remodeled, you don't have to do anything. You can go get it appraised, and that's that. But obviously, there's no contract because this isn't a purchase agreement. This is going to go over the neighborhood. So this is another kind of hack with appraisals. You can really see the market condition of that area if you really actually look at the appraisal. So you'll be able to tell, hey, this is a growing area, it's stable, it's not dipping, yada, yada, yada. Is it oversupplied? Is it undersupplied? All that's going to show up in here. So obviously this will just go up with the basic stuff, the zoning or flood market, stuff like that. Zoned single family, that will be in there. They'll also have the lot size in here. Here, again, general description of it. It's not a new build, obviously. It has the year. It's going to have, you have central heating and HVAC, the foundation. Does it have a driveway? Does it have a garage? And then we start to get a little bit more into the details, the room, bedroom count, stuff like that. So here are additional features. And again, this is something that you can do, that this property actually had a jet tub already in it and it wasn't complete. But I also didn't want to spend a bunch of money, fixing up a jet tub because it was, in a rental property. But it was already there and it was already existing. So all we did was just connect the plumbing to it. The jets themselves don't work, but the fact that it had a jet tub, you'll see down here that they actually gave me a $2,000 value for that jet tub. So we'll come back to that in a second, how that exactly breaks down. But again, going back to, if you guys saw my short video, how I say I always give them a sheet of having everything that I did on it. This is where that comes to fruition. This is what they describe, the repairs, renovations, remodeling. So here's all the things that I told her that we did. Do you think that she's going to remember all this stuff by taking a video and then our pictures, and then 3 days later when she writes this report that all this was done to the property? No, that's why I make sure I give her that sheet that has everything that I've done recently, so she knows to put it in here, and that way she can get the best value out of it. So this is where it kind of gets into the weeds about it. This is where your money is made. These are the homes that they saw to be comparable to them. And then it has their sales price, and then what they sold by the square foot, their days on market, was it on the MLS, obviously, and then it will start to break into the loan financing. So here it was a VA loan, and they gave $1,900 in concessions. So what they'll do is they're actually going to deduct $1,900 from that sales price, and that will adjust the value of this property, which will then adjust the value of the square footage. So that way, if you're on just Zillow or something like that, and you're not actually on the MLS, you're not going to see that there was $1,900 given in seller's concessions. Now, if you're like myself, is licensed, you have access to the MLS, you'll be able to go on there and see, okay, on the closing comments, they'll put on there, hey, $12,000 in concession. Like this one was $12,000 they gave in concession. So that's a pretty big difference. If you were comping the comparable property at 265 and they had $12,000 in seller's concessions, that now technically effectively sells that property at 253. So that's going to completely change the square footage, which that can throw your whole thing for a loop, just as something as simple as you don't have MLS access to be able to see that. So same thing with this one, $10,000 in seller's concessions, which is obviously very common right now. So if you were just going on PropStream or something like that and you saw that it sold at 259, you thought, well, not really. It actually sold at 249. Again, that'll change the whole thing. So again, this is one discrepancy you'll see, that this site is only not 7,900 square feet. You'll see on the other appraiser, I think it is, they actually gave a value for if the site was bigger or smaller, an actual dollar amount. See, like this site on this property was bigger, so this actually should have gotten a value bumped up versus my property, but since she didn't do that, it's not a knock to mine. And then vice versa. Say I had a bigger lot, I should have gotten more value to my property, and these would have been deducted if they were bigger, but they're not. Again, view, residential, style of the home. This matters. If this is a big problem a lot of people get into. If you have a brick home or a 2-story home or yada yada yada, you have to find other properties just like that. You can't go to a 1-story home or a ranch style home, whatever it is, and then try to compare it to your 2-story home. You need to find other 2-story homes because you don't know what the appraiser is going to value up or down your property. And they're always going to find like properties. So you could have had a badass comp that you were using, and it's not even going to be on here because it was a 2-story home, or it was a ranch and you have a 2-story home, yada, yada, yada. So, and again, obviously the age of the property matters. It has to be within a certain age range. And then the condition, this goes to all these properties I looked at, they were all remodeled. So all of these, this was like a recent flip that a guy did, another investor. So they all got the C3 grade, which if you go back up here, C3 because we remodeled. So if this is a good way to fight if you do have to protest your appraisal, that say they're comping your C3 against a lower quality comp, say it was like a fixer upper that needed work, so that would be that wouldn't be put as a C3, it would be a different number. So that would be the first thing I would do if I had to protest an appraisal, be like, hey, you're comping my remodeled property to an unremodeled property. But you have to kind of give them, you can't just look at pictures, you have to be able to give them like an actual description of, hey, why are you putting my C3 up against this other property? So that's one thing I always look for to make sure those are the same. Again, this is going to be total room count, your bedrooms, your bath count, and then the gross living area. Obviously, that's the actual square footage, livable square footage of the home. So as you can see, if there's a discrepancy, like my house is smaller than this house, so they're going to deduct the value of that off of the actual property itself, because my property is smaller, so they're going to make this one be a lower value because it has less square footage, and then vice versa. This one's only 1,800 square feet, so they had to up the value of this one when they sold because I'm at 2,000 square feet, so they have to make up for that. So obviously, same thing here. So then also you saw here 2.1s mean they have 2.5 baths. So this got deducted 2,000 value because it has more baths than mine. So same thing here. So this is going to be a 1-car garage. This one, 1-car garage. So the value is different. I didn't have a covered patio. This one had a covered patio, this one didn't, and this one did. So that's why the values are changed there. See, I had the jet tub, $2,000. My property didn't have a fence, so they deducted the value of this $2,000. I had a storage garage, so that means that they gave that storage garage I had that I almost tore down because it was really not the best shape, an $8,000 value they gave that storage shed. So that's big, you know. So these are going to be the adjusted sales prices of this. See, this one only sold for 262, but after they plus and minus all the differences, it adjusts. And obviously, they have to be in a certain range of what they adjust. They can't just pick a fixer upper and then adjust the crap out of it. It has to be in a certain range that they adjust to. So they adjusted all of the prices of the home to get that, and then that was how they're going to actually do it. Let's see here. This is the sales data. So after doing all that, this is one of the ways they view it is by the sales comparison. So this is the value that they gave my property off of the sales comparison. And then the cost approach is going to be this. And this is a formula that they use for like replacement costs. So they'll go to the area, see what the average, build per square foot is, what it's going to cost to build the dwelling, yada, 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 and it comes out to this price. And then typically these will be averaged. And for some reason, okay, this is why. So their income approach, I'll show you the other one how the income approach works. They said there wasn't adequate rental data to be able to give an income value, I suppose. So they just went off of the sales comparison, which I'm perfectly fine with that number. So go to the next here. We kind of went over that. So, okay, so this is the income approach. If they had the data to do it, they would have taken the monthly market rent and then have a gross multiplier by that, and then that would actually spit out a number of what they deemed income-wise how they valued the property, and then that would have been here on the income approach. And typically they'll take like the middle or the average. I've seen a couple different ways of how they actually determine what they actually consider to be versus against these 3 ways that it comes up. So there's that. There's no HOA. This is just kind of just definitions of everything. But this is actually where if you go through this, you should know this stuff. I've read through this. If you want me to send you a copy, email me. I'll send you a copy of it. You should read through all of this stuff because this is where I learned about the condition of the property, that C3 I was telling you about and stuff like that. That's where, this is the appraisers, obviously info. That's where you're going to find all of that stuff. And it all this stuff will be on here. I'm not going to go over all of it because it's not that important. Here's the invoice of what it cost. Same thing. See, this is what I'm talking about. So conditions, ratings, and definitions. So you're going to be able to go through and see exactly what they gave you. So like C1 is new construction. C3 is when my property is given. So if you're down here, if they're comparing against C6, saying it needs substantial repairs, well, that's not going to be an equal comp, you know? So you need to, that's one of the things you should pay attention to, that they're giving you the right C rating for your property. And the same thing, this is all stuff that you could go through to be able to find. You should know a lot of this stuff, all these abbreviations. It's a great way to be able to walk through this and see. And then this is kind of cool because it shows you the actual market conditions. And that way you kind of get some headwinds to see, hey, which way is this area going? Because a lot of my properties are in the same area. So this is all stuff that I actually pay attention to. And this is one of the first pages I go to when I get an appraisal, because I want to compare it to another appraisal I had done, say the month before that or 2 months before that. So you actually can see, hey, which way are we trending? Is the days on market going down? Days market's going up? Because there's so much data out there now, like, oh, we're oversupply, blah, 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 blah. Market's going down. Well, that's not even true even inside different sub-markets in a market. So yeah, the overall market of Corpus Christi could be going down in the wrong way. But if you're in an area where people are still buying because people want to live and there's low supply there, these numbers are what's actually going to be true for that area. So this is also very important. And this is a real important number you should look at, because this is going to tell you how much are they dropping the price to get these things actually sold. Is there a strong value to price? It's called, what is it? List to price ratio. So that's another thing I look at too, to be able to tell which way are people just accepting low balls. That means it's going to start driving price down, because you got to understand, it's not the stock market. It's not going to tumble overnight. But over the course of, say, 12 months, you can see that we're trending the wrong way. Well, eventually we know that in 6 months from now, if you're buying a BRRRR, when you go to refinance this thing, hey, they're already starting to drop their prices. So that means that there's a good chance that it's going to be declining. Things you got to pay attention to. And then here they'll just go up to this, the photos of your house, and then it also will have the photos of the comps that they used against you. So this is the first comparable sale used, the second one, and the third one. And then there'll also be a map. You can see how far they were away from the subject property. This is just the engagement letter from them, what they're asking for from the bank. And then here is the sketch. So this is where they're going to show you exactly where they put everything, which in this one, this was technically a bedroom. So this is something that if I wanted to try to fight it, I could have, to make this to be a fourth bedroom, because it does have a closet. It meets the standards of a bedroom. But it was one of those things, it's like, is it really worth? The appraisal came back real strong. Wasn't really worried about it. It actually came in over $10,000 what I estimated the ARV to be, so I was perfectly fine with it. But it is important to check this, because there has been other homes where they made a mistake and they put utility room or something like that when it actually was a bedroom, and I had to contact them like, hey, you put this as a 2-bedroom house. This is a 3-bedroom house. And the appraiser was like, okay, hey, yeah, I made a mistake. Let me get it. So always check this to make sure that, and then it's really easy to tell them, instead of just looking at it and say, oh, hey, you only put 3 bedrooms. They're not going to know which one they missed. But once you go in here and you can look at the schematic and see, okay, hey, this is where they missed it. They called this a utility room. It was actually a bedroom, So, and this is the calculation of how they do the square footage. And that's pretty much it, I believe. Yeah. So let's go back up here to the comparable sales, and I'll show you what I was talking about here. So I'm going to pull up another appraisal, and you're going to see that two of these same comps were used, but they're going to be completely different. There's a different value that they changed in here, and that's something that you got to pay attention to. So let's check that out. All right, so like I said before, let's go over the 5 things that I think raise the value the most when it comes to the appraisal. And I'm also going to go over the 5 things that I think that little big misconception of the actual appraisal of it adds value or not. Now, they might add value in another way because maybe it makes your property look nicer, so you get a better tenant, so you get more rent. So that, hey, technically that is adding value. But here I'm just talking about the actual appraisal itself. So my number one thing, I'm sure everybody knows this, adding square footage. So if you can do an addition, if you could take a covered patio that maybe is not insulated, there's no HVAC in there, and you can just finish it out, that is an easy way to bump up your ARV big time. So those are the things you want to look for when you're walking a property where maybe other investors, they don't see any value in it, because why would I want this? Actually, the appraisal that I just showed you, the second one, that property was 1,400 square feet, and it was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, because it had a small apartment on the other side of the garage. So all I had to do was finish out the garage and then make a hallway into that room and connect it to the main house. And then now that all becomes gross living area square footage, all by just turning the garage into a bedroom and making it a hallway. I added a bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom, and 550 square feet for maybe $8,000. So again, and that kind of treats me into my 2 and 3, adding bedrooms, adding bathrooms. It's not rocket science. If you add a bedroom, you add a bathroom. Bedrooms, no one really has a formal dining area anymore. If you have a dining area or an extra living area that's just kind of off by itself, put a closet in it. Closet takes $200-$300 in drywall. Doesn't even have a door on it. Just put a closet in it. Now it is considered a bedroom. Not only does it help for your appraisal, but also it also adds value to the point of now another family can consider that 3 bedroom. So now your rent goes up as well. Because you understand, especially in South Texas, everybody piles in these houses. You might have 2 dining rooms and both of them are going to have beds in them, because they're going to use them as bedrooms anyways. So you might as well get the value out of it. So that's 1, 2, 3, adding square footage, adding bedrooms, adding bathrooms. 4th thing, energy efficient windows. As you saw, or energy efficient items, I should per se. So as you saw there on the appraisals, there actually is a section for energy efficient items. That is an actual value to the property. So those things actually increase the value of the home on the appraisal to where the point he can actually value it more on the appraisal. So not only are you getting you better, energy efficient for your tenants to have HVAC and stuff like that, because if you have old wood windows and you live in South Texas, the summers aren't fun. That shit's coming right through. So that's number 4, windows, energy efficient other items. Number 5 are going to be your big ticket items, which obviously roof, HVAC, appliances, water heaters, stuff like that. That's stuff that when you put it on there, the appraisal will actually be raised by having a new HVAC system, a new water heater system, stuff like that. So those are the 5 things I do. Obviously, you can get into the whole like, oh, I added an outdoor kitchen, added this, that. Yeah, but what is your actual bang for your buck? Because you got to remember, this is a rental property. So you might have to repair that HVAC system anyway. So you're going to have to replace that water heater at some point. Why not do it now? Unless it's brand new, I'm replacing it, because not only is it going to raise the appraisal of my property that I'm trying to get cash out of, I'm going to have to fix it down the road anyways. You might as well do it now when the property is vacant. There's nothing a tenant hates more than either being in the middle of the summer with no HVAC or being in the middle of wintertime with no hot water. So why not repair it now? You're already going to bid it into your jobs. All my contractors know every single job we replace the water heater. Everyone. Why even guess to say, especially fixer uppers that haven't been lived in 2 years, it's probably not going to work anyways. Just budget that into your thing. To every one of my houses gets a water heater, gets a new HVAC system, unless they are brand new. Can you skimp out sometimes and yeah, it's got replaced in 2021, 2022? Sure, you can. But if it's anything like that, I'm still going to replace it, because 1, it gives me peace of mind knowing that, hey, my CapEx is going to be low because all the major ticket items are taken care of. They're under warranty. All my HVAC systems have 10-year warranties on them. Granted, you still have to pay your tech to go out and fix it and replace Freon, yada, yada. But say the compressor goes, that's going to be under warranty. Big ticket item, out of the way. HVAC is your biggest expense when you're a landlord. HVAC and plumbing. So while you're doing these BRRRRs, you might as well get it knocked out of the way now. Doesn't make any sense not to. So those are my 5 things: square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, energy efficient items, and your big ticket items: water heaters, HVAC. Again, these are my 5 things that I do. Does that mean that's everybody's? No. Are there other things you can do? Yes. But again, these are rental properties. These are the best things that I think in the BRRRR method you do to increase the value of your appraisal. And let's talk about the things that don't actually increase the value that everybody seems to think that they do. The appraiser doesn't care if your tile is $14 a square foot. It doesn't. Also, they don't care if your vinyl flooring is $6 a square foot versus the $2 a square foot. Gets the same value, which is really nothing. Those things only count, these 5 things, they might get you a value, like I said, in something. You might get a higher rent, better tenant, yada, yada, yada. You might get the better comp because obviously you want to get comped against the flips. But it's the same thing where if you put, $2 square foot luxury vinyl plank and you put $1.80 square foot subway tile as a backsplash, is going to get the same comp as the person that put $14 square foot, fancy smancy backsplash tile. So that's things that I do that I don't put in because it's not going to, has no effect on my value of my property. I get a good LVP that's waterproof, that looks nice, and I use it in the same thing through all my homes because I buy it in such a quantity, I get it for so cheap. But obviously I'm still replacing because you don't have carpet or something like that or whatever. But for example, say the thing has hardwood floors. You're not going to see a change in your appraisal if you leave the hardwood floors versus putting LVP. Everybody thinks, oh, I put $10,000 in new flooring. It did nothing to the appraisal of your home. You did not raise the value of your home by doing that. Second thing, paint. Obviously, you can't have holes in the wall and stuff, but spending, some of these people are watching paint 5-10 grand to repaint their home and then 5-10 grand to repaint the outside. You didn't raise the value of the appraisal. Yes, if you were trying to sell it on the market, would that draw more eyes to it? Maybe. But did you raise the value of your appraisal? No, you didn't. So if the paint's in good condition and you can leave it, leave it. I mean, personally, I paint everything, but that's because they're usually not in the condition where you could save it. But at the same time, I also do it in the rental sense. All my properties are the same color on the inside, and that's trim, walls, ceiling, same color. So that way, whenever I have turnover, I can save myself time and money by when I send my guys back there and even the correct sheen, they won't have to do a ton of drywall repair. They won't have to spackle and paint and try to track down, hey, take this sample to Home Depot and try to match it. All the same color. That's for simplicity. That is not to raise the value. Painting it has no effect on the value of the house. Third thing, fixtures, light fixtures and stuff like that. They don't care if you spent $600 at Home Depot on a new farmhouse 6-light pendant light that hangs over top of your dining room. Sorry, guys, has no effect on the appraisal. None. And here are a couple of things that you probably want to think about, and you will if you're a BRRRR guy and you do a lot of rehabs. Stuff like trim and doors, they have no effect on your appraisal. It doesn't matter if you take the same solid core door from the 40s and put a new door handle on it and paint it. It's going to be the same thing where if you go get some fancy 6-panel wood interior door at Home Depot and spend $400 per door, has no effect on the appraisal. Trim. Just go buy the cheapest baseboard or 1x4s you can get. It's a rental property. The appraiser is not going to dock you if you don't have $4 square foot trim pieces like that. Now, obviously, it depends on your market. You don't want to underdo your house, but like in a place where I live, where I'm buying homes that are in, all the homes around it are 100 years old. That's why I buy there, because you have good comps, because there's a lot of remodeled homes, but they're all older. So if you take all of those old baseboards off and you can save them, paint them, put them back on. And you didn't change the value by, people don't understand until they get into it how much money they spend on trim and quarter round. Because if you're pulling out carpet and you're putting in LVP and The guys don't save the old trim pieces. Now you're painting trim or quarter round. You have to choose which one you're going to do. Some of that $2-3 a foot for trim. So if you're budgeting for, say, your flooring, you're budgeting for, even if you went and you do what I do and you go buy wholesale price, and I get my flooring for $1.35 a square foot, usually goes for $2, but I just negotiate a good price. So even if I'm getting the super cheap flooring, if you don't factor in 90 cents a foot for quarter round, that's a big expense. I've looked at it. I was spending $600, $700, $800 per house just on quarter round. Those are expenses you don't think about. But guess what? It has no effect on your appraisal. So those are the bigger expenses that I think that people waste a lot of money on. So you have flooring, paint, tile, light fixtures, and trim pieces and doors. Those are the things that people spend a bunch of money on that have no effect on your appraisal. The actual appraisal of the property. Like I said, in other words, it might help you get a better quality tenant if it looks pretty, if it looks nice. Yes, that is adding value to the property, obviously. Or if you're a flipper and you're trying to sell it, I get it. But the actual appraisal itself, no. As long as you're getting to that quality, that same C3 quality, and it looks just as good as the other ones, I'm not saying don't change out your light fixtures. I change out all my light fixtures. I put new ceiling fans on all my properties. But I spend $44 on a Hampton Bay 44-inch fan. I don't go get some elaborate, 56-inch fan that's $200. It didn't raise the value of my property spending the extra $160 per fan. It didn't. I get the same 6-light Sputnik, light fixture that I buy for $24, and it looks new, it looks modern, but I didn't need to go find some one-off, thing for $400 at Home Depot. It has no raise to the value of your property. If you're flipping, yeah, like I said, you might, because it's at that point the property is worth whatever somebody's willing to go into contract for. So if they fall in love with that $14 square foot tile, you're like, you're an idiot. I agree, but I'm a BRRRR investor. I'm going to keep it as a rental, and they're just going to beat the crap out of that. And who knows, in 10 years from now or 30 years from now, if I ever go to sell, it's going to have to get completely remodeled anyways. So why not just maximize your ROI now? Why dump that extra $10,000 in fixtures and tile and materials? That, because you have to think with the BRRRR method, every dollar you save is literally a dollar of profit for you. That's how you have to look at it. People ask how I'm making $75,000 on a single BRRRR. That's not equity, that's cash. That's cash back. That appraisal I showed you, I made $75,000 tax-free on that property. I bought it for 80. I put 60 into it, and you saw the appraisal 274. You do your math. I could have easily spent another 20 grand on that property because it's 2,000 square feet. It's a big house. Well, at least for this area. Could have easily spent another 10, 15 grand, 20 grand, easy. If I went and bought expensive tile, elaborate fixtures, $200 ceiling fans for each bedroom, could have easily blew through another. But that's literally dollars taken out of my pocket whenever you do that. And like I said, putting in that $4, 4-inch baseboard trim does nothing for you. Tell your contractors, hey, the door trim, if it's not shattered or rotted, save it. Door packs aren't cheap. And it's, again, who cares if the pieces of trim is in 2 pieces because they say it broke or whatever, or they were able to splice it back together? Caulk it, paint it. It's a rental property. Whenever you go to sell it down the line, yes, go that extra step, do that. But there's going to be more margin in it for you. And there's not going to be a tenant in there beating it up for the next 30 years. So yeah, if you can save it, save it. Are they going to notice it? No. Is an appraiser going to dock you for it? No. To me, that's common sense. But I think that's why a lot of people, they struggle with the BRRRR method because they don't understand that there's a lot of things that actually increase the value of the property when it comes to the appraisal, and there's a lot of things that don't. But you still need to, like I said, obtain that higher quality grade so that way you get compared to the other flips. But once after that, there's no value to it. So if you have questions, feel free to shoot me an email, me, DM me. Like I said, this is why I think the things that raise the value the most. And especially when it comes to square footage and stuff like that, I mean, we can do additions for 1/10 of the cost of what that square footage actually is. So To me, that's the easiest way right now. And there's also been other benefits to that as well on the rental side of it. Like for example, a property I'm doing right now, it was a 2-1. 2-1s don't rent well and they don't buy well. No one wants a 2-1. So I was able to get it on the MLS for really cheap. Like I think it was like 55 or 60% of what it was listed for. And they took my offer in a heartbeat. Why? Because no one else wanted it. It's a 2-1. But I added 400 square feet, added a bedroom, bathroom. Now it's a 3-2. Now that's in the sweet spot. 1,400, 1,500 square feet, 3-2. Not only am I going to get $400 or $500 more for rent because no one wants to rent out 2-1 because that means that there's no master bathroom. They got to share a bathroom with their kids. Your tenant pool goes down substantially, so no investor wants it. So now I just made it a 3-2, which is like every family's sweet spot is the 3-2 because now you have a master and the kids have their own bedroom. And I'll get a tenant. Actually, I already have rented. We're still a week and a half away from finishing it, and I had a tenant put a deposit down, I think on Friday, a couple days ago. It's already rented. So there wasn't even just the fact of upping my appraisal. There's also upping the value even more by getting more money per month for rent. And my tenant pool grew substantially because of that. So that's why I'm a big advocate for that. You got to look for that stuff. Those are things, like I said, that property was on the MLS. Anybody could snatch that up. But that's just the way a BRRRR works. You got to make it work. Every house is a deal. Every deal can be done. Just got to make the numbers work. But all right, hit me up in the comments if you got any questions. Feel free, reach out. If you're in Texas, hit me up. I mean, this is the same market and a lot of stuff in Texas. I have access to the MLS. I am a licensed agent. I only work with investors, and I really don't even do that a ton because, to be honest, a lot of people just waste people's time, and I don't really have time for that. So, but if you are interested in buying anywhere in Texas, let me know. Maybe we can make it work. All right, guys. See you.